And welcome to Believe in Chargers, presented by FanDuel. And certainly Super Bowl odds are changing by the minute. The Rams, after the trade of McDuffie, now have jumped the Seattle Seahawks. They are the favorites to win the Super Bowl, perhaps with the trade that just happened a moment ago before we hopped on here. The Bills will jump a little bit, having acquired DJ Moore with Luke Easterling. You read them, and Athlon just posted a new pre-free agency mock draft today. But Luke, we appreciate you being here. Our thoughts are with our friend Lorenzo Neal, who is tending to his family. So all of our positive energy going his direction right now. He'll be back next week, but we certainly thank you for jumping in to help us out with today's episode.
Absolutely. And I'll say this much. Growing up a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, I am a massive Lorenzo Neal fan. You want to talk about a guy that those of us true fans that watch the Bucs in some hard seasons, but also some good seasons. Nobody respects the fullback. Everybody should respect the fullback. And when you talk about like the quintessential throwback player at that position, man, Lorenzo Neal was such a fun player to watch, and he made life a lot easier for a lot of running backs in my time watching the Bucs, but also for a bunch of other teams. So shout out to Lorenzo, man.
Yeah, we say it all the time. Lowe doesn't, I do, but anytime his name comes up, I say it truly is a great football failure that he is not in the Hall of Fame, that he or Moose Johnston or some of these fullbacks that in that era of football were so important to the Hall of Fame running backs doing what they, I mean, in Lorenzo's case, it's every single place he went, you've got a 1,000 to 1,500 yard rusher that's running behind the guy.
It's the same thing. One of those like viral tweets went out the other day. It was like asking about, your favorite fullback from back in the day. And it's always Lorenzo, man. He goes, I don't count Mike Allstott. Like he's not a true fullback. Like he was a 250-pound tailback with like ballerina feet. Like that's not a fullback to me. No, man, Lorenzo and those guys, like you mentioned, John Ritchie, so many guys that just iconically represented that position. So such a fun player to watch.
Well, he'll be back next week. Today, though, very lucky to have Luke, especially on the doorstep here of free agency. We're recording this on Thursday, so exactly less than a week out from free agency. You got used to be called legal tampering. Now it's called the negotiation period, where all of the deals start to leak out. And if you got sources, you already know prior to the legal tampering or negotiating period that quite a few deals are already being kicked around and discussed for free agents. So I'm just going to start, Luke, with your mock that posted today on the website at Athlon's website. And I'll just go right to number 22. And the way that it reads, it's athlonsports.com, is basically this has to happen is what you write. This pick has to happen for the Chargers. That's what it says. So why don't you share with our viewers and listeners who that person is, that player is, and why it has to happen.
Yeah, first of all, I love that they finally stopped calling it legal tampering period, because that's an oxymoron. Like if it's legal, you're not tampering. Like that's the whole thing. So that's one of the like word changes where I'm like, okay, that actually made sense that you changed that, because that's a dumb phrase. But no, the pick that has to happen for the Chargers there, it's Olivavega Ioane is how you pronounce this man's name, and he is easily the best offensive guard in this draft. And the reason I say it has to happen is because, you moved on from Mekhi Becton. I'd be shocked if they bring back Zion Johnson. I think he's going to get very, very paid on the open market. And so you're hoping, obviously, that Alton and Slater come back at full strength after those injuries that they had last year. But that interior just needs so much help. It's not hard, even if you're not a Chargers fan. Anytime you saw the Chargers on TV, Justin Herbert was on his back underneath three defenders once those tackles went out. Yeah. And it's why they weren't able to do as much and go as deep in the playoffs as I know they would have wished. So, Justin Herbert has all the talent in the world. He could probably be the best quarterback in the league if he was able to reach his potential. And that's just not going to happen if you can't keep him protected. Obviously, they've invested in the ground game in the backfield in terms of the personnel back there. But I don't care if you have a first-round pick in O'Marion Hampton. If you're not going to be able to win the interior of those trenches, there's not going to be much space to work with. And so Ioane is just the plug-and-play quintessential, I can forget about this guy for the next 10 or 12 years. He's a dominant blocker. He's so powerful. He can work in pretty much any scheme, but I think he'd really be successful in Mike McDaniel, John Harbaugh, that run-the-ball-first mentality that they want to have. And it also makes your play action game that much stronger when you know you can turn your back to the defense if you're Justin Herbert and not be terrified that as soon as you turn around, you're going to have, a defensive tackle in your face. So again, the value feels right. I think he's a top 15 player in this draft, but because he plays an interior spot, those spots tend to slide a little bit down the board. I could see him going as high as 14 to a team like Baltimore, who has very similar needs on the inside of their offensive line. But if he's there at 22, I pretty much don't care who else is there. I really think that's the pick that the Chargers need to make.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the interesting thing is going to be how free agency plays out, right? They move on from Disley and Becton. That now pushes them over $100 million of cap space. And when you have that kind of number and you hear about what the market's going to be for Tyler Linderbaum, and you've got Joe Ortiz here, and you know what center has looked like since Corey Linsley had to abruptly retire, and what it looked like when he was arguably in the conversation as the best center in the league. To me, that just feels like the big ticket item. Like, yeah, that's where they're going. They want to write the check. They're happy to write that check. They'll overpay because you have the intel, right? When you're a team in free agency and you're signing somebody else, okay, well, why are they letting this guy go? What do they know that we don't? Are we overpaying? Ortiz has the intel. There's enough coaches from the Baltimore tree there that have the intel on Linderbaum, and just watching him play, it's hard to argue. So I set that up that way. And you brought up Zion. Zion's going to be interesting for me because in-house, they love him. You talk to any of the offensive linemen, Slater and he are thick as thieves, and Slater's going to be coming back. And I think you just saw a different Zion when Slater's out there, as you would expect. And I think if you have a Tyler Linderbaum there, it's a lot easier to replace two guys. If you bring back Zion, if you bring back Linderbaum, now you said the market could get a little weird for Zion, considering sort of the issues he's had with his peripheral vision, with stunts, and seemed like that disappeared at the end of the year, only to resurface against the Patriots. But I think you just saw that offensive line as a whole was a mess. The play calling was a mess. So I'm anxious to see how that works. And again, then that brings me to pick 22, because how are they going to spend this money? Are they going to bring back Khalil Mack and Odafe Owe and do an extension for Thule and let Zion walk? And now Linderbaum's got a bigger number from the Raiders and he's going there. Then to me, it's exactly what you wrote. This has to happen. I think if they cut the check for Linderbaum and maybe they can find a number for Zion, then I kind of look at it as, okay, well, maybe Owe's not there. Maybe Owe's market grew, to that sort of next tier, that Hines Allen 25, 26 million number that they're like, that's a tough one. So that's kind of what I'm throwing at you. Do you think this is predicated? Like, are you still running up and turning in the card if they've signed Linderbaum and they've kind of addressed their guard situation in free agency?
I think, again, I think you're looking for two guards. So I think even if Zion's back, and again, getting a guy like Ioane on a rookie contract, so you're going to have like really good cost control at a really good number for 4-5 years if you want that fifth-year option, I think is attractive. I also think that could be a sweet spot in this draft for those edge rushers. It's an extremely deep class, and so if they do feel like they've address the interior of the offensive line adequately enough to free themselves up. And again, if they don't bring back Owe, if his market, just because of his upside, goes through the roof, and those, a lot of young guys who even really haven't produced a ton get paid in free agency all the time when you're near the top, especially at those premium positions. And so when you have a young, athletic, high upside edge rusher in his mid-20s, like that guy's just going to get paid no matter if he's never sacked the quarterback at all. So, everybody's always going to pay for what they think you can do in the future. And so if that happens, again, that 22 spot in terms of edge rushers, you're talking Akeem Mesidor from Miami, who 25 years old, but man, that tape is clean. Like that tape is good. So he's going to be one of those guys. It's so interesting. There's so many prospects in this draft. You look at the tape and you're like, wow, this guy can dominate. And then there's something weird like that. That guy's 25, or like Jermod McCoy, the corner from Tennessee, didn't play at all last year. But if you go back to 24, he was the best corner in the country. So it's going to be an interesting spot. TJ Parker from Clemson is another guy, a very well-rounded guy that'll be on the field all three downs. I think even if they bring back Khalil Mack on a one-year deal, I don't think that would change my approach at that position, because again, you're investing in the next 3 to 5 years and not just the 1 year at a time that a guy like Mack would give you at this point in his career. So You can never have too many pass rushers. I think Thule is one of the more underrated guys. And again, super young guy. He was drafted when he was 20, so he's still got so much ahead of him. And so I think edge is the fallback there if they don't go offensive line there, just because I think the value is going to match up there. Keldrick Falk from Auburn is a guy that could be on the board there. And he's fun because you can move him all around, right? He's 6'6", 280, so he can play on the edge. You can slide him inside on third downs. He can do a lot of things with him. So another guy who's 20 years old and got some upside, so that, that could be attractive to them again, like it was with Thule. So that would be my approach there is offensive line. If we need it, if we feel like we've addressed it, then I feel like it's got to be a pass rusher there. But again, teams surprise us all the time. They don't approach this draft the way we do in the media most of the time in terms of just trying to match. Oh, you need this. This is the best player on the board. There's your match. It doesn't really work that way for most teams. And so that's why we see so many surprises, or especially early in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, they already did the first round thing with Zion, who I thought was as clean as a prospect as we've seen.
Absolutely.
I mean, crazy intelligent, super athletic, incredibly strong. And, for whatever reason, and I do think, and people, look, I'm a Chargers, play-by-play guy, so they're always accusing me of just having this bias. You're around him, you have this emotional connection. But, like, to me, it can't be easy having to play next to a different left tackle 6 different times through the course of a 17-game season. And for me, like, you get bonus points for being out there, like way big bonus points for being out there every single snap when every other player was going down like crazy. And that's been Zion his whole career. The guy doesn't miss games.
Mm-hmm.
He does have the one issue. It's hard for him to pick up stunts. And so to me, it's like, if you sign, maybe it's not Linderbaum, maybe you can figure out how to get McGovern for the number you want, or Caden Mays is the guy you decide to tab, or you go that next tier down and it's Sean Ryan or Fortner, and now you're drafting Jake Slaughter or Logan Jones, and there's like more of a comp. I just feel like if you put him in a more stable situation, Zion, what we're saying about Ioane right now, to me, feels like what we were saying about Zion 4 years ago.
It's very similar, and it's fun. Like, they don't have to take your word for it. Go ask anybody who plays the position and ask them how much fun it is when your elite right tackle disappears, or you're always running, turnstiling that. Because again, this is not Madden. Okay, this is not like you just plug in the next guy and he's just like got a certain rating and that's just how it works. These are human beings. Like, these are human beings that have to rep this stuff in practice every day. They have to go to practice just like we did in high school, just like we did in Pop Warner. You have to develop the chemistry and the timing and the trust with the guys next to you. And when that position is always changing and you're always starting over and learning, okay, how does this guy set? How does he come off the ball? Where, how does he read? How does he communicate? And what, all of those different things, when you're having to reset that clock and learn that for 2 different guys, 3 different guys, and not being able to rely on the guy next to you in the same way, it makes it a huge difference. And I'm not a Chargers homer, so I can say it, and everybody maybe can take it to the bank, because again, if you talk to anybody who actually plays the position, it makes a huge difference in your ability to have confidence in your own abilities, because you're just unsure about what's happening around you, as opposed to when you have your guys out there.
Yeah, and I do think, in talking, I just got back from Indy. I was out there, and it was my number one sort of line of conversation with everyone I was running into that covers the draft, and, I'll pose it to you as well. And it felt like I got a variety of answers, and that is the drop-off from Ioane, in accordance with the value of pick 22. And I said, to me, and this is what we were preaching last year, it was, man, if you can find someone to take 22 and trade back, it feels like you have an opportunity to do some damage at wide receiver, at tight end. It's a deep class. Can you sort of make that? And I think they tried. We heard that Howie Roseman was even upset that he felt like they had a deal to trade down to 29 or whatever it was, 32, whatever they had, and then it just kind of fell apart at the last minute, and they took Hampton. But I think because you're not going to get Pregnon or Basantis at 50, whatever it is, 55 or whatever.
Probably not. And it didn't happen in that mock that I just posted. So that's
So that to me seems like if you can get that, the Bills were kind of the one I was looking at. I'm like, I could see the Bills jump up if Tyson's sitting there, or if one, and now they've made that trade for more. So that kind of takes that sort of piece out. But I'm wondering if there is one of those deals where you could trade back to 29, 30, 28 through 32 and grab Pregnon, Basantis, something along the Proctor, if he slides, something like that. I know on your mock, you had Proctor going. I can't
I
decide
know he's so tough. Like I said, there's so many wild card guys, right? Where it's just like if you tell me he's Trent Williams in 5 years, I'd be like, okay, I could see it. If you tell me he's moved inside to, if you tell me he's Mekhi Becton,
Fluker.
Yeah, if he's Becton or Fluker in a few years, then I get it too, because the variance and his potential outcomes are all over the place. I will say this. I think the position that would be targeted there is probably offensive tackle, which I think there's just going to be a run there. I think from once the second or third one goes off the board, like in the top 15, you look in the late 20s. You got San Francisco, who I have trading up to 15 in this mock for a left tackle. You've got Denver, who's got Garrett Bowles, but he's 32, 33, and he's been banged up, so they're going to need a replacement for him at some point. You got Houston that just traded away Titus Howard, and so they're going to need a right tackle. Yeah. There's too many teams ahead of those teams, but also receiver. You mentioned it's interesting in that 20 range. You got teams that just ahead of the Chargers might be looking at receivers. So there's teams behind them that might be trying to jockey and try to get their guy, the one right. that they want and the type that fits. So they could be in a sweet spot. Usually it's not, I would like to trade down, but you don't have anybody to trade with, right? You can't just, force a trade down. And so, but I think there's a couple of positions that they don't really need that could have runs in that range that could give them some options and an opportunity to move down in that kind of scenario.
I didn't think about it that way, because, I think about the Chiefs at 9, and I could totally see them if Fano's there, if Freeling's there, and that's the way they go. And then at 29, I think there's enough depth at that wide receiver that maybe, or, if Tate's sitting there, that's certainly a spot where at 29, now do you want to be trading with the Chiefs? Ask Bills. You probably don't. It's not that comfortable of a thing to do. But at the same time, draft capital's draft capital. It's not that big of a deal if you like the way the pick compensation works out. But yeah, that's the tackle class is deep and it's weird. It's just like the idea that Fano's going to come out of the combine and some weird arm measurement's going to. I just can't imagine that guy sliding.
No, it's funny, Matt. The class is deep, but it's deep at the top. Like right. there's like 8 or 9 guys that I think are all going to be gone in the top 40. And then there's just a cliff. Like, I think there's a massive drop off where you're going to see teams that are like, man, I think there's 8 or 10 guys that can start right away or be high quality starters. And then the rest of the tackle class is kind of the same. Like, I don't know how much difference
you're going to get. How it always is, right?
Yeah, it really is. And so that's why, again, you're going to see these guys prioritized early in this draft. Even guys that you may feel a little early. You start seeing guys like Blake Miller come off the board in the first round. Max Ahinakor from Arizona State. And again, it's very specific to your situation, right? Because, a guy like Blake Miller, if you need a left tackle, Blake Miller's not your guy. But if you need a right tackle, Blake Miller started 54 games at right tackle for Clemson, and he's your guy. And so, fit matters so much. Again, it's not Madden. You're not just, switching a position on a guy. These are human beings, and it's got to fit exactly what you need in your room. The same is true for the receiver class too. It's very much what type of receiver you need, not just the fact that you need one. And so definitely an intriguing class. Like I said, a lot of tackles are going to come off the board early, and then I think there's going to be a lull there for quite a while.
Yeah, you had in the second round, I've kind of been trying to figure out the edge versus interior, because I with Caldwell and Tart, they're 2/3 of the way there, and I think if you can drop that third piece in, and you can go one of two ways. You can go with that true nose and get someone that's going to eat up double teams, because we know that Caldwell, we saw enough flashes. He's able to get up the field. He's kind of well-rounded. He can play nose and he can play that 3. I think they prefer to have Tart at a 3. He's got as good get off as anybody on the team. You know that. And so, like, I see a Lee Hunter or something like that in a trade back, but then I think about, the idea of Peter Wood sitting there, or I hate the boom bust idea of a first round pick. I'm much more comfortable with it in the second. To me, it feels like you just hit a double with your first rounder.
Right. The later you go in the draft, the more comfortable I am taking that swing.
Taking a half. Yeah. It's like Caleb Banks. I mean, it's so intriguing. But I was talking to, who I do the games with, Daniel Jeremiah. He was on with us. And, I said, it just reminds me of Walter Nolan. It reminds me of Robert Kimdichie. Like, there's just so many of those where you're like, God, it's so tantalizing. But man, am I worried to take that swing.
Yeah, it's you said it, man, and I think that's one of the reasons you touched on why bringing back Tart was so important is that it does give you that flexibility to where if I want to line him up at the 3 where I want him, that's great. If I need him to play nose, he can. If I like the value better, if one of those 3 techs is more valuable to me on the board when they're up in the second, but. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be options for them either way. I feel the same way about Banks, where it's just like, man, like I've got him going to the Chiefs in that mock where you see, because I could see them seeing Chris Jones 2.0 and putting him behind Chris Jones for a year and letting him develop into that guy. But the variance is all over the place, like we talked about before. And so the second round is going to be interesting because I think we'll see another run of edge guys that will deplete that group pretty fast, but I think they're in that range where they'll get one. And I think the guy that I have going to them, if I'm not mistaken, it might be surprising to some people, but Malachi Lawrence from UCF is one of my favorite players in this draft. And it's true because I am a USF alum. And so
there we go.
As a proud University of South Florida Bull, if I'm telling you that I really like a UCF player, it's the truth because I can't help it because I'd rather not be hyping up the UCF football program because it's against my football beliefs. But no, Malachi Lawrence, man, again, you turn on the tape, you look at the metrics and his win rate as a pass rusher, it's incredible. And then you go to the combine. That's what it's about, right? The combine is not the be all end all, but it's your film was great. Does your workout comparatively to your peers? How are you as an athlete, and does it back it up? And vice versa. If your film was kind of weird and then I see you test out, off the charts, I go back to it and I'm like, what's missing here? Or if you don't test well at all, I go back to the film and say, does it matter? Are you still playing well? And so Lawrence just continued to check every box for me along the way. And so I think that's a little early than you might see a lot of other people seeing him go, but I don't see really a big flaw. He's kind of inconsistent against the run, so he's probably a rotational guy right away. But he's big, he's long, he's explosive. I think he could fill out a little bit and get a little tougher and more stout against the run. And dude just gets after the quarterback. So he's one of my favorite kind of sleeper guys in this draft. I don't know how sleeper he can be now after the combine, but I think he's firmly a day 2 guy. And I think a team will be really happy with him in the 50s.
Yeah, I think, some Charger fans, and most of them are insane for watching these programs right now. So it's fine. I'm sure they've already seen it, but I've kind of been on this kick lately, this Justin Herbert kick of it's almost, I describe it as it's almost like you have a rookie quarterback. And I don't mean that as a slight, but I think about Tennessee and Cam Ward. I think about the Raiders and Fernando Mendoza. I think about what the Patriots did this last year with Drake May after what he went through his rookie year. And they just went, okay, I don't just shove the record aside. This has to be right. Like Cam Ward's good, and we cannot put him through another season. We've got to fix the O-line. We've got to get him a number 1 receiver. If Jeremiah Love's sitting there at pick 4, and that's going to help Cam Ward look like a number 1 overall pick, then by golly, I don't care about positional value. Put him back there and get Cam Ward right. And so I look at it as you've now got back-to-back playoff games where Justin Herbert has not performed, whether it's his own or it's what's around him. I lean into it's more of what's around him, particularly up front. 4 interceptions against the Texans. Oh, Herbert in the playoffs. I'm tired of hearing about him. The Patriots, you only score 3 points. Your defense only gave up 16. You can't score 17 points, and you're supposed to be this elite quarterback. Like, to me, I'm willing, and I'm sorry, Chris O'Leary, you're 33, and it's your first chance to be a DC in the NFL. Just shove it. I want a center. I want a guard. I want a tight end that can block, a full service Y for them. I don't care. Give me a backup center. Give me a backup. Like, to me, that's this offseason. Make sure you got Derwin James. You'll get Khalil Mack back. You've got enough talent on that side of the ball. I just feel like lean into the offense and make sure that is right this year.
I'm fine with that. Again, if you're going to err on any side of anything, it's help the quarterback all day long, especially when you have a special one. If you have a middle of the road game manager type, it's still kind of the same thing because it's like, man, we got to elevate this guy. But with Herbert, it's the other way around, where it's like, man, we're going to waste this really special player at the most important position in the game. Like, we hit the jackpot, like we hit the lottery, we got the guy, and it worked out. Like, that is really hard to do, man. Like
Yeah,
to ask how many teams have taken how many swings at this position and it doesn't work. When you've got the guy, the priority always, always, always has to be give this guy as much help as possible. And Buffalo's going through it right now too, where it's
right.
like they have a ton of needs on defense, but they've got to be looking at it like, yeah, but we still don't have like an actual number one receiver for Josh. Again, hence that trade with DJ Moore.
Exactly.
And so like that's if they took offensive players all like in all 7 rounds, I wouldn't have a problem with it. It's obviously not how things went here in this mock, but I will never ever say that that's not the way you should go, to find as many ways to help your quarterback as possible, build that depth in the offensive line, because injuries are going to happen. Give him as many weapons as possible to ensure that he can be successful. And it's easier to do too when you know that you've got a defense that you can rely on to a certain degree. They really don't have a ton of glaring needs on defense. But that's never a bad decision to go help your quarterback.
Yeah, I look at it and are there, Kenyon Sadiq at 22? I don't know if I'm crazy about that. I mean, he's stupid athletic. I get it. But, Oronde Gadsden is stupid athletic. I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying, like, if you tell me I can go Kenyon Sadiq with 22, or like I really like Marlon Klein. I know it's a very small sample size, but I just like the body type. I think he is Sam Roush, another guy.
Yeah, I was going to say Sam Roush is the guy that comes to mind if that's the role that you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I love the tight end class for that reason. Like there's every type, every size, every skill set in this tight end class, and there's a lot of depth. So I think they're going to be able to find that guy in just about any round that they want him. But there's a lot of fun options there.
Yeah, go sign Darren Waller. You saw what Mike McDaniel did with him in Miami. Like to me, that's you got $100 million. If you're not, I get it. If it's like, yeah, we're not going to give David Edwards $17 million. We're not going to give, we're not going to give Connor $18 million. Like there's a reason why the Bills.
We're not going to be the team that gives the stupid money to the guy just because he's the next best guy on the board at that position.
Now, if it's Linderbaum, I'm okay with that. I think that you've seen enough with Linderbaum. Yeah, this guy is a bona fide top 5 center in the league, fits your system, high character, blue chip, program, came out of to me, that's fine. And it's clear that for whatever reason, the way it lined up in Baltimore, if he does decide to leave, it seems like there was something weird there with what DaCosta was saying, and the agent won't call me back. So you can always sort of try to figure out, okay, why is this guy leaving? Well, because that's, I think, ultimately what you need to do in free agency, right? Is get to the bottom of why is he available? What is it that good players are not able to hit free agency? So what's out there? And so I think once you can get to the bottom of that, because it does feel like, in the case of Linderbaum, it's just sort of one of those weird hiccups, that maybe there's something there. So, I have no idea where I'm going with that particular rant, but I guess it's just building on I feel good about the receivers. I think I don't know if I think you had Trey Lance's brother mocked to them, I think, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I went corner in the 3rd round with Will Lee, the 3rd out of Texas A&M, just a big, long guy that I think fits the type that they want at that position to eventually kind of push Dante Jackson. But again, just a big, long, athletic guy, played in the SEC against top competition. And then Bryce Lance is so fun, man, just because he's so huge and athletic. And he turned down, from what I understand, a ton of money to transfer in the portal and go to a much bigger program because he wanted to stick it out there at North Dakota State. And I have a lot of respect for that. But I don't care what helmet he's wearing. The kid's a baller, and he went to the combine and proved it. Like comparatively, one of the best athletes on the field at the position. And when you have that kind of size, speed, athleticism, and regardless of where you played, and that you had interest from those programs, he could have gone to a Power 4 program and been probably a much more household name. Again, it's all about helping your quarterback out, giving him another big, athletic, high upside guy to line up wherever you want him as your 3rd or 4th receiver. I just loved the value there with him still on the board. He's a fun kind of lottery ticket to give Herbert, and the potential could be through the roof there.
Where were you at last year on Keandre Lambert-Smith?
Keandre Lambert-Smith. I mean, again, there was a big section of those receivers where if you ordered them in any order, I would have been fine with like the way you stacked it. So people would point out that if he was 25th on my receiver board, I thought that the 4 guys that went ahead of him shouldn't have or should have, and I was just like, no, it's like the athleticism and the upside, and especially coming out of he had such a strong pre-draft circuit of impressing people. And again, the preseason film was great too. As soon as you saw him get there, he hit the ground running. Looked like when you immediately develop confidence with the quarterback you're working with and he can rely on you and he's going to you in key situations. I remember watching them in the preseason. He was just always the guy that seemed to make the play that they needed. And so, big fan of his. Again, similar skill set. So maybe they go a different route if they want a receiver. But you can never have too many tools for your quarterback to work with. Injuries are going to happen. So stacking that side of the ball is never a bad thing.
I know. I just, I bring it up because we saw the preseason. We're like, oh, wow, this guy might jump Trey Harris, and he might be the one that's active on game day.
Yeah. If you were in a dynasty fantasy league last year, he was like the guy. Like he was after that first couple preseason games. If you hadn't drafted yet, he was the guy that now everybody was overdrafting, right? Because that's what they saw.
And I think that's what they need. I think I think Trey Harris is going to have a big year. I have so much confidence in that guy. He's so smart. He does everything right. He's got incredible hands. I think he had one drop all season long. And I mean, he was getting thrown critical third downs, tight coverage windows, catching everything. I think he's ready to take a big jump. And I'm beyond excited to see Ladd McConkey and Mike McDaniel's offense. Just the wiggle he has, the after the catch that he has, all the things he's going to be able to design and draw up for Ladd. So I do think, though, that's the one thing. Like, man, if you can just get a burner to take the top off, to really open this up and let it breathe for Q and for Ladd and for Trey, and that's where, where Bryce comes in. And I think they're going to bring Trey Lance back. I think they'd like to. They like him. I know it didn't look good in Denver, but man, again, the offensive line that they put out there, the play calling was beyond curious in that game.
Yeah, how do you evaluate that at that point? Yeah. Like with those variables, how do you actually have a strong evaluation either way?
Yeah, so having the brothers there would be kind of cool and might help ease that transition a little bit. So yeah, that one made sense to me as well. I mean, I don't want to keep you too long here, Luke. I know you've got athlonsports.com. The mock went up today. I'm sure there's going to be more trades by the time we're done with this. It feels like we're in that mode now with Trey McDuffie getting traded to the Rams and now DJ Moore getting traded to the Bills. We're waiting for that Max Crosby trade. I won't be surprised if there's some more out there as well. We're going to get more cuts. We're looking for a center. Now you got Biotish who's out there looking around. Cushenberry's out there for the last week and a half now. So I think we're going to start to see more offensive linemen hit the bricks, much like Mekhi Becton did. Will Dissly, I think, is a starting tight end in this league, and the Chargers cut him loose. So we're going to continue to see more and more. I guess I'll kind of wrap with this, and that's just how would you approach free agency? And I'm not going to make you think too hard here. I'll give you kind of the two paths. Is it imperative for you to bring back Owe, Mack, and whatever with that? You're going to get Thule done. That's a no-brainer. Like you said, the guy's 24 years old, so that's going to happen. Yeah. Whether or not you want to do it this offseason along with another Derwin extension, like would you attack that first, Owe, or would you go get Linderbaum, wrap up Zion, or identify Ciamalo, Zeitler, Bitonio, something like that? Would you attack offensive line first or defensive line first?
Yeah, I think, again, like you said, Linderbaum would be my focus just because he's the surest thing. Like, I know exactly what I'm getting. Not that they don't with Zion, but Zion, I feel like his number could get silly in a way that I might not be comfortable paying. Like, if a bad team with somehow more money that wants to spend way more of what they have to give him top dollar, and he just wants to make the most money, that number could get out of hand, where I feel like Tyler Linderbaum is going to stay in a range where it matches his consistent high level of play in a way that I would be more comfortable paying for. And again, I'd feel more comfortable paying, and I feel the same way about Zion's number that I feel about Owe's, which I kind of said earlier about, like, I feel like that could get out of hand to the point where I'm not real comfortable with that. And I have more confidence in the defense than I do the offensive line right now. And so that would be my focus. I would start with Linderbaum and go from there. My internal guys, it would be, hey, which one of these numbers gets out of hand the fastest, and which one am I? Again, it also, and I feel like one of the biggest reasons I would lean towards Zion is the edge class is way deeper than the offensive line class along the interior. So it's, if I have to pay a little more than I'd like to solidify that offensive line in front of Herbert and bring back those two veteran guys and maybe still draft a guard, I feel like I can go get the edge guys that I need in this draft because the depth is going to give them to me on day two.
Yeah, if I can, if you told me that I can get out of the draft with one of the three, right? With DeSantis, with Pregnon, with Ioane, and that's going to preclude me from signing Zion. And instead, I'm going to go out there and I got it to my right, which is why I'm looking off camera here. And instead, I'm going to go out and sign some sort of combination of, if you can finally convince Zeitler to move to the West Coast and get a year out of him, Ciamalo on a 2-year deal. Batonio, already mentioned him. Look, if I can get Elijah Vera Tucker and I can promise him a base of, like, let's say $12 million, right, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to make up to $22 million based on starts and make you one of the highest paid guards. Like, to me, that's a swing I'd be willing to take if I knew I've got another person and then I'm drafting one or two. To me, that's the most compelling guy. Like, if I can take that swing, but if he's willing to do that sort of deal, and I don't know if teams, like you said, are going to get crazy and they're like, we don't care, here's $18 million. That, no thank you. But if I can do like 10, 12 as your floor, and I can get you all the way up to 22, 24 if you play every game kind of thing, like, that's the swing I want to take. But I'm pretty committed to having just because we've seen it. We've seen Justin with an elite center and what it looks like when Corey Linsley was here. I'm pretty committed to just write the check, Linderbaum. What do you want, dude? Let's get you out to LA. Let's get you with Justin Herbert. Let's figure this thing out.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's got to be the top target. Rich, whatever way you go with the rest of it, right? If it's Linderbaum and then you address the defense, whatever. I feel like he makes the biggest impact, and he's the one I'm most confident in will live up to whatever that number ends up being, and then I'll figure out the rest afterwards.
What else is happening, Luke? I mentioned you got the mock that posted today at athlonsports.com. I assume the magazine's coming out pretty soon.
It is. It hits newsstands again. We're recording this on Thursday. It comes out Friday, March 6th. It's going to be on your newsstands. There's an online order link if you want to get it off the website. You can find that on there, athlonsports.com. I wrote 200 plus scouting reports in there. I wrote team needs for everybody. Had to make a late addition when they re-signed Tia Tart like the day before we went to press. So I had to send a specific email to the editor to tweak that little blurb after they made that re-signing. But yeah, I've got a 2-round mock draft in there, and then obviously the magazine is so great to just have in your hands. It's, again, those of us who grew up reading it, it's still just so great to have that. I got one. Let's see. Let me grab mine.
Here we go. Oh, look at this.
We've got a
preview.
A one-on-one exclusive interview with Caleb Downs, who is the number 1 player on my board. Fantastic story written by Doug Farrar, my good friend at Athlon.
Love Doug.
Yeah, Doug's the man. Doug's the pro. But yeah, definitely pick that up. And then basically the website is the online version of the magazine in terms of the updated versions of all the content in terms of my scouting reports and my position rankings. We've got all the position rankings up there now. You can find those in the mock as well. Those are embedded in the mock draft from today. But every week, man, every Thursday morning, I've got a new mock draft. Again, now that the combine's over, I've expanded it from 3 rounds to 4. So any fan of any team who doesn't have a first round pick or wants to see how they could build this mock, I went a little even more crazy. I have projected comp picks in there. I've got trades that I'm projecting. I've got 4 teams trading into the top 10. And so things get wild pretty quickly in that mock. Yeah. So it's just, I try to present something that's a little bit deeper than what you're going to get. Everybody does a mock draft this time of year, right? But a lot of them, the majority are only going to be 1 round. You're not going to see any movement. So I try to give everybody a deeper look at how things could really shake out in that mock draft. So definitely do that. We've got a ton of great stuff on our YouTube channel. So definitely pick up the magazine and look for that mock every Thursday morning leading up to the draft.
Love it, man. Really appreciate it, Luke. In a tight spot today. Luke, nice enough to help us out. And we thank our friends at FanDuel. Again, you go to the FanDuel.com sportsbook, sportsbook.fanduel.com. And what do we got? Rams after the trade for McDuffie, plus 750. Favorites, co-favorites now. They were plus 700 a second ago. I just refreshed it. Now we got even plus 750 a piece for the Rams and the Seahawks. The Bills after the trade for DJ Moore now at plus 1,000. And there are the Chargers, the third favorite in the AFC at plus 1,500 behind the Bills and the Ravens. That is what our friends at FanDuel have going on right now, so be sure to check that out. We appreciate them putting us on and taking care of us here. Luke, enjoy mock draft. Fast forward to draft season, and hopefully we'll catch up with you again soon.
Hey, it's great stuff, Matt. Say hey to Lorenzo for me, and you guys take care.
There we go, everybody. Bolt up. We'll be back next week.